Thank you, Mr. Carter. I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With growing violence and drug trafficking, Mr. Carter, in Mexico and homegrown terrorism threat, we have to crack down on illegal immigration for our nation's security. I welcome those who enter this country through the legal means. Matter of fact, my grandparents came here in the early 1900s. But illegal immigration is illegal, as you said. No matter how well-behaved the person is, they're still breaking the law. As far as I'm concerned, those are the laws, and we must obey them. As the former heads of the 9/11 Commission found in a recent report, immigrants and domestic terrorists now pose a threat to the United States. Today's terrorist is hard to identify, so it is vital that DHS is proactive along our borders. There continues to be evidence that terrorist groups are collaborating with drug cartels along the U.S. border, as my colleague Sue Myrick reported in a recent article in the Washington Times. This is especially troubling given the rise of homegrown and immigrant terrorism highlighted by the 9/11 Commission. In recent weeks, several memos have been released, as you said, or leaked, outlining plans for rewarding illegal immigrants. The first, a memo by the Citizens and Immigration Service under Homeland Security, details ways to grant mass amnesty to illegal immigrants without any kind of legislative action. At the core, this is a separation of powers issue, as you stated. It must go through the legislative process. This is an arrogant, in my opinion, an arrogant and dangerous alternative to having Congress act on the issue. To grant amnesty to illegal immigrants undermines our immigration laws and is a slap in the face to those who go through the process of entering our country legally. And to do this by skipping the legislative process, as the Department of Homeland Security memo indicates, is wrong. It's clearly wrong. Following the memo's release, Candace Miller and I wrote a letter to Secretary Napolitano demanding clarification and to see if this memo reflects the Department's or the White House's policy plans. The response was basically a non-response, Mr. Carter. Another memo highlighted by an article in the Houston Chronicle, you may have mentioned this, it outlined the possibility of dismissing, and I think you did mention this, 17,000 deportation cases and releasing the offenders inside the United States. What kind of a precedent are we setting? And a third idea from DHS involves focusing on illegal immigrants who commit more serious crimes, so in other words, not getting them off and ignoring those who commit minor infractions. So in other words, focus on the ones that is committed the serious fines, but the minor infractions will be let off. Again, what kind of a precedent are we setting? I've asked for hearings, Mr. Carter, on this. I know you know that, and I serve on the Homeland Security Committee, and I am the ranking member of the Oversight and Investigation Committee. And we asked for hearings to find out more about the intent of these memos, and am waiting for a response. I have not received one so far. But these plans and memos aren't the only actions the administration is taking to seemingly undermine immigration security. The administration has taken to suing state government, specifically the state of Arizona, for trying to enforce immigration laws. The administration needs to take real action, in my opinion. It needs to send more enforcement to the border. Sending a few hundred extra troops to the border is not enough to protect 2,000 miles. DHS needs to improve technology along the border to help the border agents police the terrain. And I've been to the border. And it needs to improve its visa security process, the screening process. Over the past several years, there have been multiple instances that demonstrate shortcomings in our visa screening process. I've sponsored a bill, legislation to strengthen the student visa program and ensure better screening and monitoring of foreign students once they are in the country. DHS has also identified several high-risk areas around the world, and we identified them in the early 2000s where we need visa security units to properly screen our applicants. We've been very slow. and they have not been implemented. There are only approximately between 15 and 20 in place out of several high-risk areas identified around the world. Currently, that's a quarter, as I said, of the high-risk visa-issuing locations around the world have these visa security units, and I think that's unacceptable as well. I also have introduced legislation to expand a Coast Guard program that collects biometric information on interdicted aliens and checks to make sure that they have not repeatedly tried to enter the country. And I believe that's currently in the Senate. It was passed on one of the bills, Mr. Carter, in the House, and it's waiting for action in the Senate. Congress can prevent states from issuing driver's licenses to illegal aliens, stop birthright citizenship, and end funding for sanctuary cities. And we also need to strengthen interior enforcement and penalize employers who hire illegal immigrants. There are many measures that Congress or DHS can take to help secure our borders and protect the country. But the amnesty plans we've outlined here tonight, Mr. Carter has outlined, aren't the right way to go, and frankly, stand on constitutional ground. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Mr. Carter, and I pledge to continue to work with you on this issue.